It was 2:03 a.m. when the knock came. Not loud, not hurried, just a steady, almost hesitant tap 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 on the door. Can Yaman was awake, though he wished he wasn't. The city outside his window was quiet, the streets empty, and he had been sitting alone in the dim glow of his living room lamp, lost in thoughts he'd rather forget. He frowned, glancing at the door. Who could possibly be here at this hour? The knock came again. Slower this time. Almost fragile. When he finally got up and walked to the door, he hesitated before touching the handle. A part of him already knew, or maybe just hoped, who it might be. He opened it. And there she was. Demet Özdemir. Her hair was a little messy, her coat pulled tightly around her as if she'd run here without thinking. Her eyes, they looked different. Not like the bright, playful gaze he remembered from years ago, but softer, tired, and almost trembling. "Can," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know it's late, but I had to come." For a moment, neither of them moved. The hallway light cast a faint halo around her, the kind you only see in dreams. Can's hand stayed on the edge of the door, gripping it like it was the only thing keeping him steady. "What are you doing here, Demet?" he finally asked, his tone caught somewhere between confusion and a deep, buried ache. She swallowed hard. "I need to tell you something," she said. "And I couldn't wait until morning." 2 years earlier, their lives had been a whirlwind of cameras, scripts, and late nights on set. To the outside world, they were the golden pair, co-stars whose chemistry leapt off the screen and into people's hearts. But what the cameras didn't capture were the quiet moments between takes, the unspoken glances, the shared smiles that lasted just a little too long. They had been close, so close that even their friends couldn't tell where the acting ended and reality began. There were nights when they would stay on set long after everyone else had gone, talking about life, dreams, and the strange loneliness that fame sometimes brought. And then, things started to change. It wasn't one big fight, but a series of small cracks that began to spread. A misunderstood comment here, a missed phone call there. Rumors in the tabloids didn't help, photos taken out of context, whispers about new relationships, and the constant pressure of public opinion. By the time they wrapped their last project together, the warmth between them had cooled into something more distant, more guarded. They stopped calling. Stopped texting. And yet, neither of them could quite forget the other. For Demet, that night had started like any other. She had been at home, scrolling through her phone, when she stumbled upon an old interview clip, one where Can had been asked about her. He had smiled in that way only she knew, but his words had been careful, distant. Something inside her twisted. She tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every memory came rushing back, their late-night talks, the way his laugh filled a room, the look in his eyes when he thought she wasn't watching. Before she knew it, she was out the door, coat thrown over her shoulders, keys in hand. By the time she reached his building, her heart was pounding, not from the walk, but from everything she wanted to say and didn't know how to begin. And now, here she was, standing at his door at 2 a.m., hoping he would let her in. Can stepped back slowly, just enough to let her pass. Demet walked in, her steps hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she belonged there anymore. The apartment was warm but quiet, the kind of quiet that carried a weight. She looked around briefly, nothing much had changed. Same books stacked on the coffee table. Same leather couch they had once sat on for hours, talking about everything and nothing. Except now, the air between them felt different. Can closed the door and leaned against it for a second, watching her. She took off her coat, folding it neatly over the arm of the couch, as if buying herself a few extra seconds before she had to speak. "Why are you here, Demet?" he asked again, his voice calmer now, but still guarded. She turned to face him, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "And there's something I've been holding in for too long." He raised an eyebrow, trying to read her. "And it couldn't wait until morning?" "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "It couldn't. If I waited, I might lose the courage to say it." For a moment, neither spoke. The rain outside tapped gently against the windows, filling the silence between them. Finally, Can nodded toward the couch. Sit. They sat across from each other, the coffee table between them feeling like a wall neither was ready to cross. Her eyes met his, and in that instant, he saw the same woman he had known years ago. Strong, stubborn, but carrying something heavy inside. Then say it, he told her. Whatever it is. Just say it. Demet took a deep breath, her fingers trembling slightly. And when she finally opened her mouth, the words that came out would change everything between them. Demet's lips parted, but for a moment no sound came out. She looked down at her hands, as if the truth she carried might slip away if she met his eyes. Then, almost in a whisper, she said, "That night. I waited outside your door for hours." Can frowned, confused. What night? Her gaze lifted to meet his. The night after we wrapped our last scene together. You left without saying goodbye. I came here. I stood outside your apartment. I wanted to knock, I wanted to tell you everything, but I couldn't. Ken leaned forward slightly, his heartbeat quickening. Everything? What do you mean? Her voice trembled. I was in love with you, Can. I'd been in love with you for longer than I care to admit. And that night, I almost told you, but when I heard you laughing with someone else inside, I froze. I thought it was too late. I walked away, and I swore I'd never come back. The room felt smaller now, the air heavier. Ken stared at her, trying to process the words. He remembered that night, the sound she must have heard wasn't what she thought. He hadn't been with anyone, it was just an old friend stopping by after the wrap party. He opened his mouth, but she kept speaking. And now? I can't stop wondering what would have happened if I had knocked that night. Maybe we wouldn't have lost all this time. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I came here tonight because I can't carry it anymore. I need you to know, even if it doesn't change anything. Ken exhaled slowly, his mind spinning. For years, he had convinced himself she'd never felt the same. Now, in the quiet of his living room at 2 a.m., the truth was sitting right in front of him, and it was both a gift and a wound. Ken leaned back slightly, running a hand through his hair. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. The silence between them was deafening, broken only by the faint patter of rain against the window. Demet, he began, his voice low, almost unsteady. If you had knocked that night, I would have let you in. And I would have told you the same thing. Her breath caught. What? He nodded slowly. I was in love with you too. I still am. The confession hung in the air like something too fragile to touch. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, years of unsaid words, of stolen glances, of moments lost to pride and fear, sitting between them. Demet's lips curved into the faintest, saddest smile. Then why does it feel like we've already missed our chance? Ken swallowed hard. He didn't have an answer. Maybe there wasn't one. Instead, he reached across the coffee table, his hand hovering for a second before she let her finger slip into his. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't even forgiveness. It was just connection. The kind that never truly disappears, no matter how much time has passed. They sat like that for a while, saying nothing, each lost in their own thoughts. Outside, the rain slowed, and the first faint light of dawn began to creep into the room. When she finally stood to leave, neither of them said goodbye. Because both of them knew, this wasn't the end. And as Ken closed the door behind her, he couldn't help but think, maybe the real shock wasn't her showing up at 2 a.m., but the realization of just how much he had missed her all along.